Today, I'm going to be reading from Hearts of Fire, 8 Women in the Underground Church. Now, if you didn't see my video about the free Christian books, and these are amazing Christian books, I will put that tag on the end of this video so that you can go back and watch that. It is a review of these books talking about how you can get them absolutely free. But today, I'm going to be reading from this book, and I'm just going to start on the first chapter, the first story. I did read part of this earlier so that I would know where to start. And I'm just going to start with the first chapter. Also, I do not recommend this video for small children. It can be emotional and very graphic. So I'm just going to get started with the first chapter, Adele. You be the judge, Adel. So let's get started. Grab a cup of coffee, your favorite beverage, and I'm going to start reading from chapter 1, Adel. Amid the horror, hope. Indonesia, 5 p.m., Monday, January 10th, the year 2000. Under the shadow of swaying palm trees, Adel gathered the children together, about 50 of them. Her voice rose as she began to sing, "Onward, Christian soldiers." She could see the fear in the children's eyes as they joined in the song. "I don't want to die," one of the children called out. He was not yet 10 years old. "We're not going to die. Come, clap your hands with us." Adel leaned toward him, speaking directly into his ear to be heard above the children's voices. The scared boy reluctantly joined in. They sang another song, again clapping their trembling hands together. Adel was attempting to drown out the shouting, the screams, and the terror drifting up the hillside from less than a mile below. She knew she had to keep the children from crying, especially the older ones. If one of them started wailing, there would be mass hysteria. Adel admired their bravery. Even the other parents, who were clustered in small groups around the children, seemed to gain strength from their spirited youngsters. As the singing continued, Adel gazed over the assembled youth and spotted her own 2 children. Christina was already 9 and Cristiano 7. Adel could be brave, she reassured herself. She could be brave for her children, all the children. Her trust was firmly rooted in Christ. She worried about them, though especially Cristiano, her little Anto. He was so young and small for his age. Adel silently prayed for God's protection and again was thankful she'd grabbed her Bible before fleeing her home. She opened it now carefully, turning the worn pages to a familiar passage and read aloud. "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." Philippians 4:13. Then Adel flipped to the back of her Bible, where numerous songs were printed, and she led the children in another chorus. While they were singing, some of the children began complaining that they were hungry and thirsty. They had been on the hill since noon, and now the setting sun casts a vivid tawny glow over the sky. Sunsets could be so spectacular here on their small Indonesian island of Dodi. But today, the twilight was an ominous prelude to the darkness about to fall on their village. Suddenly, the shouts of her husband, Mitu, pierced through the children singing, "Run, Adel, run!" Adel rushed to the edge of the hill and struggled to see the waning sunlight. She could barely make out the silhouettes of men scrambling up the steep trail. Again, Mitu's voice rang out, "Take the children, Adel, hurry! You must run into the jungle." Instead, Adel froze, paralyzed by the crackling sounds of fire, now drifting up the hillside as smoke ascended into the darkening sky. They have set the entire village ablaze. Every house would be consumed, she knew, including her own. She agonized over the choice she made and the choice she must make. Should she help Methu as he made his way up the rocky embankment, or should she run to her children? It was all happening too fast. In the same way a person's life can pass through her memory in an instant, Adel's past and future now collided in her mind. 2 wonderful children, a loving husband. Life has been good. She turned toward the children, then glanced one last time at Methu. And in that instant, she remembered an uninvited, audacious 17-year-old who had stubbornly seated himself on her mother's couch. Only God can separate you now. July 1989. Mom, he looks like a monkey. Adel hissed, peeking out from the kitchen door toward the young man waiting in the living room. Her mother was not impressed. Adel might be too young to get married, but she could still show a little respect and appreciation for the young man's relentless determination. He arrived at their house at approximately the same time each day. Adel didn't know if she was more flattered or annoyed, as each day Methu confidently settled himself on the couch and repeated the same request. Actually, Adel had answered him numerous times, but Methu was either refusing to accept her answer or just pretending not to hear her. I don't want to get married. I'm too young, and even if I did want to get married, I don't want to marry you. Adel persisted. She was 17 too, and her beauty had recently blossomed. But she had no interest in starting a relationship, although she certainly had plenty of opportunities. Methu offered no argument nor took offense at her impetuous remarks. He just sat there and patiently explained again to Adel that she was to be his wife. It's in God's plan, even if you think I look like a monkey. Adel chuckled as she caught the hint of her mother's smile. Undeterred, Methu once more made his request. So, will you marry me? She knew there was no logic in answering, so Adel just sat there wondering when he would go away. Finally, Methu got up to leave, but before departing, he removed his outer shirt, folded it neatly, and placed it in her lap. There, he said, you won't answer me, so my shirt will wait in my absence. Adel couldn't help being flattered by his youthful yet sincere gesture. Maybe he wasn't so bad after all. 3 months later, Adel and Methu were married. It was traditional wedding according to local customs. It started early on a bright October afternoon and went long into the night. 2 complete meals were served to the entire village that came out to witness the joyous event. It all seemed to go by in a flash as Adel fought off intermittent waves of anxiety, worrying again that she was too young and marriage was a terrible mistake. She was the first among 7 siblings to marry. How could she possibly comprehend her new obligations as a wife? Only the words of pastor after the ceremony brought the new bride comfort. Adel, he had told her, only God can separate you and Methu now. Adel became pregnant a month after the wedding, and although she carried the baby full term, the child was stillborn. After a long, intensive labor, Adel and Methu were devastated, but 5 months later, Adel was pregnant again. Adel was pregnant again. This time, the baby was born 3 months early and wasn't expected to live. Friends who came to visit comforted Adele and encouraged her to be strong when the baby dies. My baby's not going to die, Adele answered obstinately. Her heart was entirely convinced, and she refused to be swayed by the opinion of her family or neighbors. She would not lose another child. Adele gently laid her newborn daughter on a pillow and softly spoke to the tiny girl, praying to God at the same time. "Why are you here, Christina?" she whispered. "You didn't reach your full time in my womb, but here you are. And even though you are so small, Matthew and I love you so much, and I know God is going to protect you." To the amazement of her family and the villagers, Christina developed into a healthy toddler and was joined 2.5 years later by her brother, Cristiano. Adele and Matthew couldn't have been happier. Soon after Cristiano was born, they moved into their own home. It was a simple 3-bedroom house made mostly from bamboo. And it had dirt floor. It was humble, but it was theirs. Perhaps when the children are older, they could afford a better, larger house. That would be something to look forward to. For now, though, they were happy just to be out from under the roof of Matthew's parents. Nearly all the families of Adele's village were Christian, and she enthusiastically assisted with the church's youth programs. There were more than 50 children close in the age to Christina and Cristiano, and Adele loved to read to them the same exciting Bible stories her grandfather had once read to her. It seemed fitting that she was now doing the same work as her grandfather, preaching the gospel, even if it was to neighborhood children. Guys, this is part of the first chapter of Hearts of Fire. And I think this is a really good book. The story continues. Like I said, you can go to The Voice of the Martyrs. I found these books actually on Facebook, and I took a gamble, and they came. It took a few weeks, but they came one right after the other. These stories are true. And I'm telling you, if you want to hear more from Hearts of Fire, 8 women in the underground church and their stories of costly faith, these are true stories, true stories. And if you want to hear more, let me know, and I will continue to read from the chapter of Adele and find out what happens with Adele and Matthew. I love you guys so much. God bless. And if you want more, let me know. We will continue to read chapter 1.